Hi, everyone. This is Krista Dunk with 100X Publishing and the Author Acceleration Academy. And welcome to this next interview of Broken Chapters author interview series. And today we have with us our chapter 1 author, Renee Parris. So welcome, Renee. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. I've been looking forward to our time together.
Yes, me too. Me too. And your story was just so powerful, and in trying to figure out the order of the chapters. Of course, we had 21 authors in Broken Chapters. It's like, okay, strategically, how are we going to lay all these chapters out in what order and things? And yours just happened to become number one. And I just love your story. And so if before we talk about your chapter, I would just love to take a minute and share a few bio details with those who will be watching this interview. And so, the first, you're a financial strategist, you're a coach, you're an encourager. You grew up in a small town in Kentucky. You've been married to your husband now for 38 years, and you live with your family in North Carolina. You own and run several businesses. You're very involved in ministry and missions projects, and you are a parent. You have one special needs child. I think we're going to probably talk about that a
Right.
little bit. And if anyone has read your chapter, they're gonna see the infertility struggles that you went through, and kind of some of the grief journey that caused. And so you're an entrepreneur. You love business. Your primary business is you are a financial strategist and business coach, specializing in retirement planning and growth strategies for clients. And your business name is Forecast Financial Group LLC. And you also train and support insurance agents and advisors. And so you're professionally doing all kinds of wonderful things. It sounds like personally and in your family, um, involved in wonderful things as well. And so in Broken Chapters, your chapter was called The Journey Through Grief. And yeah, tell us about why you wanted to write this for the Broken Chapters book, kind of why you chose to write about what you did and how that came about.
Sure. I think when we all look at our lives, there for most of us there are many broken chapters, right? Our life is a whole story, and each chapter is either great, one that you want to repeat, or one that you hope you never have to go through again. Um, what I know about grief is that it can and will affect everybody at some point in life. And so I felt like it's this universal topic that doesn't get talked about a whole lot because it's not fun. Um, People handle it all different ways. It's very personal, but yet there are these universal kind of concepts around it that I just felt like needed to be spoken to. And so whether, I chose to focus on a little bit of our story about infertility and miscarriages and how that affected our marriage and our walk with the Lord, but specifically the loss of our son. And I wanted to highlight that because, for most people, if you think, what is the worst pain? What is the worst kind of grief? Most people would say it is the loss of a child. And there are a lot of people who fit into that category, but there are a lot of people who just have grief of different kinds. And so I wanted it to be it is a painful topic, but I also wanted it to be encouraging and to kind of show our journey of how we flip that script and take that pain and make it into usable and something that we can now have gratitude for on the other side. So that's really why I focused on it. There are a lot of other things I could have focused on in the book, but that was one I felt like not a lot of people are willing to go there because it's raw and it's personal and you can't write about it and talk about it without feeling it all over again. And so for me, I just knew that that's what the Lord wanted me to speak on specifically.
Yes, yes, the loss of a child. And so in your case, your son unexplainably died during delivery. And yeah, I know some other people who have had that same experience. And we have some friends who actually had their 2-month-old pass away. And anyway, it's just such it's more common than we think. And a lot of people
Absolutely.
are dealing with that kind of grief in their lives. And that really can affect people in many ways. And so, yeah, the fact that you wrote about that, um, I'm glad you did. I know it was hard. I know it's hard
Thank
to
you.
write about some of these journeys that we've taken. Uh, but I think it can give other people hope, and it makes them um, feel like they're not alone. And sometimes it can validate our own grief journeys and like, yep, and there, oh, I felt that too. Oh, yes. And that, just kind of
Right.
helping people understand that that's a normal thing,
Yeah.
and anger and just all of the different things
All the,
that
all the things that go along with that. Yeah.
all of the things. And so when you and I chatted yesterday in talking about this interview, I was like, what do you want to, Renee, what do you want to bring up here besides talking about your chapter? I know there are grief things that have happened in your life in other ways. And I feel like you're kind of a grief expert now, Renee. You have a lot to share with people. Um, and I just think every single person on the planet has grief and
Hmm.
or will have grief. Just there's small and large. We have loss of various kinds, even if it's just loss of a dream, loss of some kind of relationship that we had. There's just loss of so many different kinds in our lives. And
Right.
so, yeah, I just want to just let you just share some things for a few minutes with people that I think you could encourage others in their grief processes and their grief journeys,
Right.
just with some of the things that you've gone through and learned that the Lord has taught you.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. I have often said that I am well acquainted with grief. It's not a badge of honor that anybody chooses and signs up for and says, I want to get good at grief, right? But God has allowed me to go through so many various kinds of grief and loss that I do feel like I have learned that it is a process. It is a chapter. It's not the whole story. It is a journey. And I've often seen that people get stuck and the grief defines them. And I make a statement in my chapter about that grief doesn't have to overshadow every area of your life. That is also good. And it can. I've seen people that it just becomes this black cloud and it defines them and they never move beyond. And by moving beyond doesn't mean that you let go of all the good and the emotion of the person or the thing that you lost, but it means that you choose to frame it in a different way. And I remember when our son was really small, he had trouble with transitions. So we would go and have play dates or homeschool co-op groups, and every time we left, he would cry. And he was upset that he was leaving his friends or that that thing was over. And I used to tell him all the time, it's important to, yes, it's okay to be sad, but it's important to reframe that and be grateful for the opportunity that we had with your friends, the time that we had, that we got to do the thing that now we are sad that is gone. But I had to help him flip that script, right? And learn to express gratitude for what was. My dad passed away last April, so grief is kind of fresh and new. I'm going through the journey again, right, with a new loss. But we've had losses of jobs. My husband lost a job last year, so we had that loss. We have a special needs daughter, and I remember a chaplain in one of the hospitals that she spent. She spent the first 4 months in NICU and came home for a week and then went back in the hospital for 6 more weeks. And one of the chaplains made a statement to me, and she said, "You are on a grief journey because you have lost the dream of a normal child." And so that even prepared me to, okay, I've got to be conscious and aware of the steps in this process and not get stuck, not get caught in the anger and the bitterness and the denial and all the things, right? The guilt for if if you've had miscarriages, you know that sometimes there's guilt. What did I do wrong? What could I have done differently? If you lose somebody suddenly, you grieve the fact that you didn't get to say goodbye. If you watch somebody die a slow death, you grieve the fact that they had to suffer, right? So there's so many components of grief. But I know that grief and gratitude cannot coexist. Gratitude and anger cannot coexist. Gratitude and depression and anxiety cannot coexist. So if you focus on the gratitude for what was and how blessed you were to be a parent to that child, to have that dream, to have that job, to have that relationship, and even though they're gone, you still feel the pain and the loss, but you wouldn't feel that pain if you didn't also experience the joy of the situation and the relationship. So for me, that's what I do with my dad. The 10th of every month is tender because he died on the 10th of the month. So I know the 10th of the month for a while is going to be a tender time. It's a time that I purposely plan to have more focus on my grief, right? But then the rest of the time, I'm like, you know what? I was so blessed to have him in my life for 56 years. Some people lose their dad when they're real young. Some people never know their father, right? So for me, I'm going to focus on all the time, the 10 years of his cancer journey that we got to share, of living intentionally for 10 years and maybe spending more time together and having deeper conversations than we would have had if he had not had the diagnosis. So for me, I think the biggest takeaway I would say is you have to reframe pain. To get through pain of any kind, you have to reframe it, or it becomes overwhelming. And also, I think that the next thing for me is that I so believe in the sovereignty of God. I believe that nothing can come across my desk, into my life, into my path, unless it first got approved by the Lord. Because I so trust his sovereignty, even though I don't often agree with his choices or wouldn't make them for myself, I so believe that in his wisdom, he has a plan. And if I get stuck in that process, I mess up his plan, right? He chose me to be a mother to Jonathan. He chose then to take Jonathan. There obviously was a purpose. And maybe on the other side of that journey is somebody else who's going to have a stillborn, somebody else who's going to come alongside, read my chapter or hear me speak, or I'm going to hear their story and I'm going to rush to their side and be able to be an encourager to them that I had wished I had had when it was my turn in the journey, right? So I believe that God ordains everything as a lesson for me to learn, then for me to use that for somebody else. And that focusing on that is so helpful. Now, in the middle of raw grief, you don't care about helping anybody else, right? Yet the pain is so intense, you're like, I don't care about everybody else. But once you walk through the journey, you look back and you're like, okay. Like I just heard yesterday of a family in Kentucky whose daughter, 14-year-old basketball player, freshman year, collapsed on the court and died in front of all our peers in the middle of the game. And my heart instantly, just like it was a knife, and I'm like, I know what that family is about to go through. I know that level of shock and denial and grief and anger and all the things that are about to come, right? I feel it. I know it. I've been there. And that's how it is with everything in life, right? Until you've experienced it, you can never really understand. And even going through grief, you never understand somebody else's grief journey because we all love differently, we live differently, we hurt differently. So while I say I'm good at grief, I would never say that I understand everybody else's situation. What I do understand is the process, right? Um, but I would never say you're going to be able to use that. So let's go. Here we go. No, you have to have time, and that timetable is different. Everybody's chapter is a different length. I do think the more you go through anything, the better you become at it, and so it kind of becomes a condensed version as you get better at it. But the first time you are hit in the gut with grief is tough. I have a friend who's 24. She just lost the first person in her life that's ever died. And I'm like, how did you get to be 24 and you've never lost anybody? What a blessing, right? But by the time I was 24, I'd already had a couple miscarriages and lost grandparents and aunts and uncles and best friends. And so it is a journey. But I would say hold on to the fact that God is sovereign. He has a plan. And while you hurt deeply, also be sure that you express gratitude for the time you had, because deep grief is a reflection of deep love, right? And the longer you hold on to anything, the deeper the loss when it's gone. And so the loss with my dad was 56 years of my life that he was my dad. He was my pillar. And I don't think I understood the foundation, how much of a pillar he was until he was gone. Right. It was a very different grief than losing a child or losing a grandparent. Because I just realized, as a parent, when you lose a parent, it's all of a sudden you feel like you're floating out there with no stability, right? No foundation under you. So every grief journey is different, but it is a process. It was brought into your life through the wisdom and sovereignty of the Lord. And it will at some point be a gift that you will be able to share with others. And so I guess those are the two things that I would say is frame it with gratitude when the pain is really intense, and understand that God brought it into your life for a reason, on purpose, and don't miss it. Don't miss whatever it is that he had planned for you to learn through the process.
Mm, such wisdom you just shared. That's just so much, so much. It's not the whole chapter. It doesn't have to, you don't have to get stuck there. Um, but realize it's a process. You might get better at it. Reframe it with gratitude. Yeah, the Lord knows what he's doing. He has you. He's going to work things out for you. Yeah, yeah, that was amazing, Renee. And I'm sorry that you've been so acquainted with grief and about your dad. And I know we've been friends on Facebook for a while, so I kind of watched your journey as your dad was passing and different things, and I know how hard that was. And so, yeah. Thank you for sharing all of that. Oh, go ahead. You have something else you wanted to add there?
No, I was just going to say about my dad, it was a very painful journey, but again, just in that, just understanding and acknowledging that God allowed me to be there when he passed. God allowed me to be there to minister to him physically, to help care for him the last few days. And what a beautiful gift that was. Death is an interesting thing, but it's like birth. There's such a miracle to it. It's unexplainable until you've walked through it and been with somebody as they pass. And it really is a beautiful gift. And so I'll forever be grateful that I had that I could minister to him during those few days, right before he passed, and then be there, the moments of that transition. And just, um, I believe he saw the Lord, he saw angels, and, said that, like pointed that out to us. And so it was a beautiful gift. Again, doesn't take away the hurt, but just finding the little things in that journey to be grateful for. And, for some people that read the book, this book it's so deep and rich, and there's loss in every chapter, right? That's why it's called Broken Chapters. Whether it's divorce or a wayward child, or there's so many kinds of loss and brokenness. But in all of those, the common thread was our hope is in the Lord, right? And how he does take that particular chapter and uses it to make us stronger, to deepen our faith, and to expand our sphere of influence. So, I've never had to walk the journey of divorce. I don't know what that's like. There's a lot of losses that I read about in this book that I'm like, oh my word, how would I get through that? But I would, because God gives the grace that you need for your journey. Or he doesn't give me the grace that you need for your journey, Krista. He gives me the grace I need for mine, and vice versa. So we all look at each other and we say, wow, I could never do that. But you could, because you would have the grace, you would have the sovereignty of the Lord who brought it to you, knowing that you were the person that could be trusted with that loss. So I love the book, and I thank you so much for putting it together and allowing me to be a part of it. I so enjoyed meeting and reading these other authors. Some of them I already knew, some of them, these are new relationships, but I just so admire how everybody dug deep and was willing to share and be so vulnerable, because that's what it takes to be impactful to other people. You have to be willing to be vulnerable and to pull back the curtain and say, here's my rawness, right? Here's my pain. Here's my struggle. And hopefully it will be a blessing to other people. So thank you for putting the book together.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you for being a part of it. I'm so glad that you are one of our authors. And it's been such a pleasure to work with everyone. And so if you haven't heard of this book before, it's called Broken Chapters, 21 Testimonies of How God Rewrites Our Life Stories. And there are a lot of difficult, challenging situations and experiences that these 21 authors have had. And I know that every single person, though, in it, these are stories of redemption, like how God works things out. And that broken chapter, like you mentioned, Renee, does not have to stay there the whole chapter. Like, trust the Lord with it. Help, have him be involved in your healing process. I kind of feel like, and maybe, I don't know how you feel about this, Renee. I feel like there really can't be complete and true and full healing in a person's life and soul and spirit, really without God's help. Like, then otherwise it's just our willpower, or it's positive thinking, or all these other things that really truly, I think, don't get to the root of some of the pain and wounds and different things that we can have in our lives. And so I just appreciate all of these authors just sharing their journeys and their stories of how God really does rewrite our broken chapters. And that's on Amazon too. If anyone is out there and you're like, hey, I should check that book out. It's print and Kindle. Check it out on Amazon. Just search for Broken Chapters, and that will definitely come up. So, okay, Renee, we are getting close to our wrapping up here of this interview, and it's been so good. But I would love it if you could kind of tell us what you're up to now and how people can get in contact with you. If you have some, website information you want to share or anything like that, that would be fantastic.
Okay, yeah, great. So my day job, I am a financial strategist and a business coach. I specifically love coaching women who are in financial services, female entrepreneurs of any type, but specifically women who are in the financial service industry, because it is historically always has been a male-dominated industry. And so I am all about bringing women into that industry and then coaching them on how to be more effective. So that is my day job. I work with clients of all kinds. I do estate planning, financial planning, retirement planning. I have a team of agents all across the country that help me with that. So forecastfinancialgroup.com is my primary website. But if somebody wanted to reach out to me personally, they could do that by just Renee at forecastfinancialgroup.com, that email, or my name backwards. So Parris Renee at yahoo.com is kind of my personal email where a lot of my ministry stuff comes to. So anybody who wants to connect with me to just, I'm always willing and love the honor of just talking with people about their own grief journey. So if anybody wants to reach out, share their story, I would love to pray with you, help you kind of get unstuck, because it is a process, right? And that's why grief counselors are so important. My mother went through group counseling after my dad passed and found it so helpful to talk to somebody who's outside, not her kids, not her friends, but somebody who didn't know him. So I would love to be able to pray with people and help them. They can also find me on Facebook. I don't do a lot of Instagram. I have an Instagram account, but don't even understand how to use it. But I would love the honor of just praying with people and encouraging them on their journey of any kind of loss. My heart is always for ministry and helping people. So that's how they can find me.
That is wonderful, Renee. So forecastfinancialgroup.com.
Yes.
And Renee at forecastfinancialgroup.com too is your email, or yes. Okay. Facebook, there's always Facebook. Send a little message, and you on Facebook are Renee Crawford Parris.
Yes.
And so, okay. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I so appreciate you coming on and sharing all of this. And I appreciate you being a part of the Broken Chapters book. If anybody wants to get a copy of it, like we mentioned, it is on Amazon in Kindle and paperback print version. And I believe there is a special anointing on this book that is for people who have gone through challenging circumstances, who have gone through loss, who have gone through difficult seasons and chapters of their lives, to just really see the fact that, oh, these people are telling their stories and they've been through all these things, and I've been through some of that too. And if God can do this for them, he can do it for me. And that's my hope really in putting this book together, is that people will read this and go, if God did it for them, he can do it for me. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and I don't have to live in this broken chapter. This doesn't have to define me. I don't have to get stuck here. And so, yeah. Okay. Thank you, Renee. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed our time together, and again, just I'm so blessed to be a part of this book project.
We are blessed to have you with us, Renee. So, okay, so if you're watching this, you're like, gosh, I really like what Renee has to say, and I might want to connect with her. Or maybe even you're just thinking, oh, I could use help in my financial life as well. Definitely get in contact with Renee. Check out her website at forecastfinancialgroup.com. Send her a note on Facebook. And again, we are thankful for all of you who are watching this Broken Chapters author interview series here on my YouTube channel, Author Acceleration Academy. And we just pray blessings to you all, and have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful week, wherever you're at in the world. We just thank you for watching and being with us again. So bye, everybody. Watch for the next episode of our Broken Chapters author interview series coming soon. Thank you all, and bye for now.